Let's get into it. It is episode 632, Soul Not For Sale podcast, and these are the clips that got Russell Brand canceled. These are the clips that got the machine to activate and say, go. We have to silence this man. There's 2 clips I'm going to play for you. 3 clips, actually. 2 of them are what Russell Brand likes to call the facts. Okay? So he comes with some facts while talking to Bill Maher on his podcast. And then another time he comes with some facts when Bill is on his show, Real Time. So both times he says it to millions of people. One of the times he says it to a live audience that has no filter between them and Russell. And I think this is what did it. Every single person who goes through this has something that they did. James O'Keefe breaks his biggest story. The next thing you know, 3 days later, he's ousted from his company. Tucker Carlson breaks some of the biggest stories of his life, says some of the most controversial things ever. And then a month later, he's fired from Fox. Same thing with Joe Rogan. He did what he did during the pandemic, where he was just having all sorts of people on with all sorts of opinions. Then they went at him. Russell Brand did this, and I think this is what activated the machine. So there's going to be 2 clips of that, and then 1 clip is going to be Bill Maher giving Russell Brand a warning. That's what it sounds like to me. I feel like when you're in this entertainment thing, like they are, when you're in Hollywood, because they both are still in Hollywood, they're removed, but they're still attached to it in a way. I feel like when you're in that, there are people who will come to you, who are your friends, but they will speak on behalf of the powers that be. You know, they'll hear things and they'll try and give you a little warning to kind of stop you from doing what you're doing. And I believe that's what Bill Maher does in this 3rd clip that I'm going to show you. So let's get right into that. Before I do, you know I got to bring you to the store. This is IamCoachColin.com. This is the Public Enemy #1 shirt right here. Google the World Economic Forum. Remember this face. This is Public Enemy #1. If you don't believe me, Google Agenda 2030. Google You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy. Then we got the Certified Pure Blood shirt for those of you that survived the pandemic. Unscathed, unwavering, strong in your beliefs. Good job. And we also have the Soul Not For Sale shirt for those of you that want to make a bold statement to the powers that be, because the one thing that they're after, the one thing that they're trying to dampen down and stomp out is your soul. That is a fact. All of that's available on CoachColin.com. And remember, we have hoodies, t-shirts for men and women, tank tops for men and women, even some mugs. And if you want 10% off of anything you just saw, all you got to do is put in the discount code I am Coach Colin. That's all capital letters. That's all one word. There's 1 L in the name Colin, and that gets you 10% off on us. No questions asked. And if you've done that with us already, thank you so much. You're much appreciated. Let's get into this clip.
It may have gone to shit anyway. I mean, Russia is a tough place. And the people, you know, have been brutalized by communism, which is horrible for the soul, not to mention the pocketbook. But, yeah, go ahead.
Bill, can I give you a bunch of facts? Because then you can riff on them, because I'd love to see your take on these facts that come from our content on our show. Like our research gleaned from some great journalists, and it's mostly okay to say this kind of meta-journalism. Right. We accumulate facts. We don't use anything that's not been endorsed in mainstream media. Let me hit you up with some of this stuff, and because I genuinely want to hear your take. But let me give you the whole thing as an overview, and then you can, as Bill Maher, because let's face it, no one else can do this.
Knock yourself out.
Okay, so former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said recently a Russia-Ukraine peace deal was blocked by Western powers. We know that Boris Johnson visited Ukraine and counseled Zelensky against taking the peace deal that was on the table. That's just one thing. Let me hit you with all this stuff. Zelensky has vowed to retake Crimea, but Russia said that's the red line that will spark nuclear war. We know that, all right? Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell said in December 2022, the most basic reasons for continuing to help Ukraine degrade and defeat the Russian invaders are cold, hard, practical American interests. And then I'll just widen this out a little. The Pentagon spent $14 trillion after 9/11. 55% of it went to for-profit defense contractors. The average American taxpayer contributed $2,000 to the military last year. More than 900 of that went to corporate military contractors. At least 15 politicians who shape US defense policy have investments in military contractors. Military contractors split their checks more or less evenly between Democrat and Republican candidates last year. And Biden appointed a former BlackRock MD to the cabinet in particular to sort out the post-Ukrainian reconstruction.
Okay, stop.
These are good facts, Bill.
These are facts. Possibly. I don't have a fact checker here. I don't doubt any.
You're not going to need one.
Wait. But it's so far from the point. I mean, I feel like your antenna for conspiracy theories. I mean, you have a good antenna, and then sometimes it does not serve you well because, like, even if all this stuff is true, it's just more complicated than that. Both things can be true. It can be something that is a worthy endeavor to stop Russia from invading another country, and it also could be the case. It is the case, of course. People in the defense industry are looking to keep having reasons to make weapons and so forth.
Yes.
There are people who absolutely have a vested interest in war. Those are what your facts are saying. It doesn't mean, even if all that is true, and I would agree, there are people who have a vested interest in war. That doesn't mean, logically, it doesn't mean that every war is because of that.
I would
Wars
offer
can
this.
also be for another reason, and then these people glom onto that.
But
That's called the shock doctrine. When you take advantage, of a crisis, it's going on. But it also could be the case that the war is a valiant endeavor. To a point.
I'm not excluding that.
Not till they bomb Ukraine to nothing. I mean, it's a very valid question now to ask.
What I'm saying is, do you think it's a coincidence that the mainstream media only reports on one aspect of this conflict, only gives you one narrative? I am obviously not in a, look at my glittery trousers. I'm not in an opinion position to offer a definitive opinion on this. But what I will say is that sometimes when you talk about my antenna, right, this is what I think is like, either this war in Ukraine is motivated by a genuine and legitimate need to rightly and correctly support Ukrainian people who are under attack and suffering because of a war. Because when I've been looking at life, I notice how often humanitarianism is the motivation of the military-industrial complex. So you're always like, who can we help now? Who can we help now? And wouldn't it be great if we had a system that's like, just to make sure that there is no other motivation, there can be no profit extracted from this conflict.
You know,
that the aid offered will not end up in Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, BAE Systems. Wouldn't that be a beautiful system? Like, so as long as that is one of the possible reasons, isn't it the most likely reason?
Well, again, now I feel
I'm
like
not saying, I'm talking about complexity.
I feel like now we're just making, you've made your point and I've made mine, and now I feel like we're repeating ourselves because, like, I'm just going to say again, and it sounds like you didn't hear me, like, both things can be true. It doesn't.
No, but you said earlier,
not everything has
Putin
to be
is a monster
or.
and Zelensky is a hero, and I'm like, well, hang on, what about this shit? Because do you think, like, how long do you think Zelensky is going to get support if his interests don't converge with the MIC?
Throwing your hands together, like, on the one hand, Putin is a murderer who pushes people out of windows and starts wars and all these crimes against humanity. And this guy has some shady business dealings. He's Ukrainian. He was born with a shady business dealing. I mean, that's what the country was known for before this. But, okay, let's not...
We'll park it?
What?
We'll park that.
Park that.
It.
Yeah, we made our point.
You're actually going to do shots.
So,
just park it. Let's just park that, okay? We'll circle back. That type. Very interesting. You know what I noticed Bill always does, and we'll get to the next clip in a second. You know what I always notice Bill does? Anytime he's talking about whether it be Biden to Trump, or in this case it was Russia to Ukraine, he will make the other side that he is not on, he will make it much bigger. Like, just then, he talked about Russell Brand giving into conspiracy theories, which he's not. He made sure not to give into conspiracy theories. He was actually saying facts. So he says Russell Brand's into conspiracy theories, but then also will turn around and say, oh, Putin is this, and this, and provide no facts whatsoever. And this is what he does. He makes the person that he's against, in that case Putin, this big monster, and then take the same type of things, shady business dealings, but he'll dismiss that. He'll make that very small, like it's nothing. It's a shady business deal. What's the big deal? He was born with one. You know what I mean? He constantly does that. You know, like when they were talking about Biden and Trump, when him and Joe Rogan were talking about Biden and Trump, you know, he acknowledged everything that was going on with the Biden administration and how shady it looks. He goes, but it's nothing compared to all the terrible things that Trump did. And again, in that same exactly what I just said, no facts towards what he's saying about Trump, no real evidence, kind of being a conspiracy theorist himself in that regard. And then we'll also look at the things that do have facts and go, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I noticed that's a tactic that he uses very often. I haven't been watching his content that long, so I imagine he does this quite a bit. Now, Russell Brand, you notice how Bill also said, you know, you give into these conspiracy theories and it does you no good. You know what I mean? I really do feel like these Hollywood people, you know, when they're friendly, they will give each other these type of warnings. But let's go into the next clip. More facts. This time hits a little harder, though. Let's go.
Yes.
Out of respect for you and your show, I've brought some facts. Would you... If you like, they're actually...
You just get the fuck out of here. This is not the place.
I thought you'd like facts.
We love facts. I love facts.
I wouldn't have mentioned it. I'm English, and you know that politeness is our fundamental religion.
Yeah.
But they do pertain to this issue, so may I say some of them?
Please,
if they inconvenience you, I'll stop saying them. The pandemic created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the COVID-19 vaccine. More than two-thirds of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that his company was developing a COVID vaccine for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And may I just mention, finally, and this is also a fact, that you, the American public, funded the development of that. The German public funded the BioNTech vaccine. When it came to the profits, they took the profits. When it came to the funding, you paid for the funding. All I'm querying is this.
Yes.
Is if you have an economic system in which pharmaceutical companies benefit hugely from medical emergencies, where a military-industrial complex benefits from war, where energy companies benefit from energy crises, you are going to generate states of perpetual crisis, where the interests of ordinary people separate from the interests of the elite.
He went hard. He went hard there. He made sure to. And I love that the people were listening loud and clear. So that's what I mean. These facts, these things that he just brought up and said that nobody's saying. People are saying it. You know, Rogan touches on it, but he was saying it outright. And he wasn't saying it in a way where, you know, Rogan likes to ask questions. That's how he keeps himself safe. He's asking questions. He's having conversation. Russell Brand is not having a conversation, and he's almost giving you a George Carlin-esque monologue without the punchlines. You know, if you thought George Carlin didn't have punchlines, he's really not going for the punchlines. The punchline is he's just trying to, you know, trigger your brain. So let's go from this into what I feel was a bit of a warning to Russell Brand. Let's just play that.
This was like...
We're going to wrap it up on the P.
I think so, because like I worked all day, you worked all day. I don't want to... I feel like I'm taking advantage of you. But, I know what I was going to say. You know, I admire you for so much because you're so passionate about these things. But because I just mentioned Lenny Bruce, so I'm going to say that that's a sign from the universe. And by the way, Dave Rubin's always trying to convince me about the universe, which I find amusing. But I'm going to pretend there's such a thing as the universe, who gives me messages, and say that Lenny Bruce, you know, he forgot to like be an entertainer because he was so passionate.
Right.
I don't want that to happen to you. I don't think it will. It never has. You proved that, like, not just here, but on Real Time Today. It was just like, you know, you bring it, man. And just, that's, you know, I don't know why I'm anointing myself as the person to give you advice you probably don't need.
No, I want it.
Please, you're just such a great entertainer. Please don't, like, just, you know, I know the world is falling apart, and it's certainly mostly your fault. But you know that old saying.
Oh,
Hey, don't pity the martyr. He likes his job.
And that's how they end it. There is an air of seriousness as he's saying all this to Russell. I don't know. It got serious at that one part. Even Russell got serious, where they're both usually laugh happy. I mean, Bill Maher is clearly a little drunk, a little tipsy, and, he's smoking weed the whole time. And Russell Brand is usually, real upbeat and funny. But at that point, it got really serious. And he brought up Lenny Bruce. And if you don't know who Lenny Bruce is the godfather of all of this, of podcasts, in my opinion, of stand-up comedy. And I say of podcasts because Lenny Bruce was a comedian who was saying racial slurs and saying all sorts of things that people just thought you couldn't say on stage. And he was the first one to do it. If you think anything you hear when you hear a comedy routine would have got you arrested in Lenny Bruce's day, and he was the one that would say the things and get arrested. He would get arrested. He would do a set. He'd say some slurs. He'd make fun of things. Everybody would love it. And then he'd get off stage and he would get arrested. Famously, near the end of his career, George Carlin and him actually got thrown in the same police car at one point. So very interesting how that happened. He was older. George Carlin was very young at the time, but, he would get arrested. And it's funny that Bill Maher brings him up because, he had so much legal issues. And Bill Maher saying, don't be like Lenny Bruce, because he forgot to entertain. I don't know. For me, that feels like a bit of a warning because I don't want to get conspiratorial, but I think Bill Maher is close to a news anchor. I wouldn't say mainstream news, but I'll also say mainstream news slowly takes the form of different things over time. So, I don't know. Maybe he just had a message. Maybe he heard something down the pipeline. Maybe he overheard something at a party, one of those eyes wide shut parties. If you haven't liked the video already, like the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. You think I'm off here? I could be. I mean, come on, look at me. I'm sitting in a room. I'm dressed in camouflage. I could be off, but maybe not. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. It gets hard to keep up. We're making 1 to 3 videos a day. And other than that, I am out.